All right, well, that last video got some views, some nice angry comments, particularly from Andrew Tate fanboy girls. Yeah, I guess, I don't even know what they found offensive in it, honestly. Did I talk about Andrew Tate? Not really. I think they just saw that the title was triggering for some, and just my overall weird Joker performance. It was really just the opportunity for me to put out an audition tape for the Joker. I do think I deserve the role for the next film, and I just felt inspired. What can I say? I felt inspired. But yeah, honestly, I don't know who I was really mocking more in that video between any of the characters that were loosely discussed. I guess you could be offended if you're a TJ, Amazing Atheist fanboy, maybe Jordan Peterson fanboy, Andrew Tate fan, I don't know. But I kind of wanted to just give some more thoughts on that in a more serious, non-Joker, non-licking my lips sort of way. So Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson, the short version of what they represent is just sort of the basic version of masculinity, but really just what is going to make people, what they're promoting is what is going to make people like you, what's going to make women like you. That's what men tend to care about the most, how they're going to attract women. And men care about that for all the obvious reasons that we don't really need to list off here. But in a way, what they're promoting is two things. Like, we can sort of cut through all the sort of controversy, the ways that they, I'm not really an expert on Andrew Tate by any means, but I got the gist of it. And the gist, the overlap of Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson is essentially, as a man, be successful and be attractive. And actually pretty much anything you ever, whether it's a book you're reading on the subject of relationships and dating or whatever, anything along those lines, the advice that men really get, what it really at the end of the day boils down to, right? If we were going to give you a very short version of it and save you some time, it's be good looking and be successful. Maybe it's more important to be successful, and maybe the good looking part you have less control over. But the good looking part that you have control over is work out, be in good shape, you'll be confident, everyone will find you more attractive, right? Particularly women. So, dress well, work out, eat healthy, right? All the most obvious things. And then be successful. Make a lot of money. At least have a job that people find respectable. Either or both, right? You could make a lot of money and not have a particularly great job if you find a way to, I don't know, however you make your money. But that's the short version of it. And now they might have different ways of presenting the message. They might overlap in terms of who they appeal to in some ways, and there might be a little bit of difference, right? Jordan Peterson seems to have probably more respect for women. He doesn't say quite as many inflammatory things, but there's plenty of people who would be equally offended by both, I imagine. Generally people on the left, right? So, but it is true, as TJ mentions in his video, the sort of things that, certain difficulties that men are dealing with, and in particular, actually I don't even know if he goes into this too much, I kind of skipped around his video, but just sort of society's demonization of men, right? The only people that, I'm gonna just keep referencing people on the left because that's particularly the ones that have this sort of ideology, this sort of anti-male sentiments. the only time that the left is going to pull up some sort of statistic to sort of demonize a particular demographic, it's pretty much just going to be men. And if you use statistics to try to sort of judge some other group, whether it's a particular religion, a race, women, whatever, then you obviously are sort of a racist, sexist, whatever, and all these things, which might be true. But if you were to, talk about men's propensity for negative things, statistics on violence and assault and all these other things, then they're happy to use statistics. Now, that's just one small example. TJ was mentioning sort of different slogans, the future is female, all these different things. We all remember the sort of Me Too movement, believe all women, which, people are going to argue why that makes sense, but just from a very basic intuitive level, believe if there's women and men, believe all women sort of implies you don't have to believe men, which you might imagine why men would be uncomfortable with that sort of idea. But then even there, right, to try to steel man the opposition, they would say, well, statistically, this proves that actually you should believe all women because X amount of this and that and the other, right? But anyway, so where does that leave us? The video is about sort of, and actually, I guess I sort of predicted this because I know of TJ's some other videos, or the other one I responded to about atheism or whatever, and this connects in a way. It's sort of, in a way, I'd say it's about the sort of the void, the nihilistic despair that people have, particularly men, so what I anticipated was that he wasn't going to have any solutions, and it turns out, as I kind of skipped through the video, towards the end, he didn't, right? And you can't really blame him for not having solutions to solve all kind of societal problems. But I don't even know that he really diagnosed it quite accurately enough, which is, like I was referencing in the beginning of this video, men care about the opinions of women. They want to mate, they want to procreate, even men who maybe just want to have fun, right? They still care about that, about attracting women. And so the situation right now in our society, and there's a lot of factors that go into it that I'm not going to list off all now, but things like changes in sort of cultural attitudes about gender roles, about who's going to college, who's making more money, there's all sorts of things which have ended up sort of destabilizing the relationship between men and women, where it would be, let's say, more common for men and women to get on the same page to form a relationship. Now, I wanted to kind of reference the whole Leave It to Beaver fantasy, because a lot of times people think in sort of black and white terms. It's like, well, the Leave It to Beaver thing, it's such a characterization of reality that never existed, all this stuff. It might have existed more than it exists now, and it might not have been a sort of that vision. There might never have been a utopia. There never has been, though, in human society. So let's say, just hypothetically speaking, that there was a sort of semi Leave It to Beaver situation, and that the average person was living a 6 out of 10 existence, 10 being utopia and 1 being dystopia. And maybe today the average person, even if there's an increase in sort of the average person's lifestyle, wealth, belongings that they own, technology, all that stuff, in terms of how they would report their well-being, let's say it was a 3 out of 10, right? So the idea is that even if the Leave It to Beaver thing is a bit of a hokey fantasy, it's not a total myth either that there was a time period where people generally felt more comfortable about who they were, what their goals were. Men and women were able to form relationships that worked. And that doesn't mean that they always worked. It doesn't mean that every man was happy and that every woman was happy. And, you can go back and talk, well, what about sort of, did women have the same opportunities and all these things? And even though the answer is no, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's total bogus that plenty of women might have been happier in those times for a variety of reasons. Not every man, just like not every family was just leave it to beaver fantasy. And also, it wasn't the opposite of that, where every man was just grunting at his wife and beating her, and she sort of whatever. My most popular YouTube videos are about Revolutionary Road, and that's not, I don't think is there domestic violence in that? I don't know. But this sort of portrayal of the 1950s married lifestyle as some sort of hell, I don't know that we have the evidence that that's any more true than portraying it as a utopia. Anyway, I'm babbling. So is there a solution to all this? Well, the reason why people are drawn, one of the reasons why people are drawn to Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson is just the basic sort of thing that I got at the beginning of this video. Yes, all the obvious, be good looking, right? Which both of them are probably considered to be decent looking men, right? Attractive men. They don't have, they seem to have facial symmetry, and they're not overweight. But what they would say, work out, clean your room, do all these things. And I think for all the obvious reasons, if you do those things, it ups the chances that other people respect you. Why? People, just if we're going to go based on the looks thing, people, we all know the studies, and you don't even have to know the studies to just have the basic common sense that people tend to treat attractive people better in all realms of life. So if you dress nicely and you get a haircut and you shave and you do some push-ups, you work out, you look physically fit, people in general are going to treat you better. If you have a job that people find impressive, if you have a lot of money, people are going to tend to think that you're doing something right. People are going to be attracted to you, right? Especially women. Despite changes in sort of slogans, women still like men who are successful. They still like men who have more resources than they do. And a lot of women still like the idea that maybe one day they will be able to quit their jobs that they probably don't like and stay at home with the kids, or maybe these days just stay at home with the cats and dogs or something. But there's never going to be this sort of answer. Now, from a societal perspective, right? If you were trying to change society as a whole, there's certain realities that if people had more self-awareness, both men and women, about certain things, then maybe things would be different, right? If we are to assume that men and women can still have some of the same, that they're not enemies, right? That they could serve each other in some way, then an awareness of how men and women can be good for each other. If women learned more about how they can be good for men, and men learned more about how they could be good for women, then that's how you sort of fix it from a societal level, right? But who's dealing with this, right? Are we running the education system? Or, people make their podcasts or whatever to try to influence the culture. But really what we're trying to do generally is we're talking to individuals. What is the individual supposed to do? Especially because the average individual doesn't have an audience of millions of people. The individual will feel more content, will be more respected if, we'll just talk to men in particular, if he creates an identity for himself that he's confident about. And so confidence, and he finds success, and it's just all the cliche obvious things, right? And that's why Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate eventually, I think for a lot of people, they can be a little bit stale and cartoonish, because really, I know everything I've said here, at least in terms of how can you have a better life, how can you be more attractive or well-liked just by people in general. It's just so obvious. And maybe Tate, takes it to a next level thing and, really pumps up the misogyny and all that stuff. And the truth is that even though, you tell, oh, well, he has more money, he gets more girls than you, man, he knows what he's talking about. Well, the reality is that there's someone that has there are all kinds of people that have different ideologies that get more women and have more success than you do, right? Liberal Hollywood actors that would make fun of Tate but are still drowning in money and women, right? So that's not really a good argument, just to kind of cut that argument off before it starts, that sort of Tate by default, since he has more money than I do and more women, that would make his sort of ideology correct. What's correct is the obvious, is that being good looking helps, being successful helps, but it's just so obvious that it becomes sort of silly. And the reason why Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate saying things that are so obvious became sort of icons and popular is because they mixed in a little bit of sort of edginess in there, right? A little over-the-top stuff in a society that became too politically correct and stuffy, and the woke stuff that is overdone and went to an extreme, that just sort of saying things that are in opposition to that, or even going so far as like going to the polar opposite end of the wokeness and actually sort of playing into that sort of character that woke people see the oppressors as, right? So Andrew Tate actually playing that character. Oh, look, men are Messiah. Here is the proof. Oh, so I will play that part, right? It draws in attention, but none of that's going to matter in terms of your own life, in terms of your own feeling good. If anyone inspires you to get in the gym and make more money, well, yeah, I guess in that sense, you're going to do better in life probably by getting in the gym and making more money. Anyway, this video is very rambly and repetitive, but I don't have a script. This is just the walk and talk defending champ video. So you'll have to, unless you had to pay to watch this, no complaints allowed. But I'm sure there will be. Seems to be a lot of I seem to draw a lot of negative comments. Anyway, yeah, so what advice, if I'm gonna actually give advice, I'm not sure if I'm going to, beyond just those cliches of, how to win at life. And if you don't consider yourself, if you think of yourself as someone who's not, an ideological thinker, you're not wrapped up in sort of, my life is my political party, my life is my religion, or this tribe, or if you didn't sort of adopt someone else's idea of how you should view the world and what the good life entails and what the rules are, right? Some people, like I sort of alluded to in the Joker-esque video, is, they'll find some hero, Peterson, Tate, TJ maybe, right? And they'll look up to them and sort of adopt their perspective. But people who still don't do that, where they left off. And it's just kind of the basics of existentialism, right? You can look at life and you can try to be as honest as possible about who you are in what the world is. And of course, we're all a little bit living in our bubbles, based on our life experiences, whose ideas we've been exposed to, what sort of cultural messaging is out there. No matter how rebellious you think you are, we're all influenced in some way by somebody and something. But it goes back to, you have to create your own rules, and you have to decide how you want to spend your time, what you want to put your energy into, what's going to make you feel good. And I think a danger that a lot of us face, myself included, is the overthinking, the wavering, the sort of indecision. And unless you come to a decision on something really crazy, crazy, that meaning that you do things that are just so detrimental to your life that there's no reversing it. Unless you decide on that, almost any decision is better than none. So the first step to escaping this sort of problem of modernity and all the ways that things sort of are not particularly great for men, or at least some of us out there, is you make a decision that you're going to put your passion into something. And even if you're not working hard to sort of get a six-pack or to make millions of dollars, I think you probably should work hard at something. Something that you can feel proud of. And I can't decide that for you. And you shouldn't let Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson or the Amazing Atheist or anyone decide that for you. You decide, what would you be proud of if you put your heart and soul into something, regardless of how it turns out, that you could be proud that you tried something. And that's all I can say. That's all the advice I have for you.